Right, welcome back to some Runechant, the data pack that I'm working on. Now, most recent updates is player stats 0.6, which is what we're going to today. And also, this is probably what I'll try and do going forward, right? Anytime I push a major update, we'll do a video on it, showcasing the features and going over it properly, which I have very much neglected, but it should be much easier because everything should be focused since the pack is nearing proper completion. But aside from player stats, there's also some additional things that we will discuss. But what are player stats? Well, actually, I need this, right? So when we use our Enchant Spyglass, which is something very, very accessible early on in the pack, right? If you just work your way through the advancements, you'll eventually be told how to craft one. Here we are with understanding player stats, although it does kind of a bad job. But basically, you throw a tutorial item that you get in probably the first 2 minutes of the pack onto a spyglass, and it will end up being an enchanted spyglass. And this spyglass, when used, will tell you what your stats are, as well as some other useful information. If you use it on another player, which I haven't technically tested because I haven't done anything with multiplayer, but it should target the player that you're looking at, right? Within a certain range. If they're obviously over on another mountain, no. If they're in front of you, it should tell you their stats. But as we can see, we've got agility, conceal, intellect, resolve, skill, and strength, and vigor. And my strength is actually at 4%, which is fine. And then our current power, which I will use to sort of up the difficulty. So as your power increases, I will make mobs in the world a bit more difficult. I might give them attribute bonuses, might give them effects, right? Still working on that part. But player stats are completely done. Then we also have the other stats, which are basically your armor, your knockback resistance, movement speed, attack speed, how much damage you're currently doing, depending on what's in your main hand. So for instance, if I put a netherite sword in my main hand, put that in my offhand, right? And now it tells me that my damage is equal to 4 hearts. This does 8 damage, so that's 4 hearts, right? And also luck, which gives you a 15% chance to trigger effects, which is more to do with a lot of the other features that you can eventually access in the pack. We also mentioned I did do a complete advancement overhaul, so hopefully that should all function a lot better now in terms of guiding you towards certain things and playing through the pack properly. But nonetheless, player stats is what we want to get into. So what exactly does it do? Well, each of the stats obviously controls something else. So for instance, we have agility, which apparently went up to 4%, and I have no idea why. That is a curiosity. But if we go through our scoreboards, I will tell you how internally I'm doing it. So we have our overall agility, which is currently at 0, so I don't know why it was 4. That's interesting. And then we have a few other modifiers, basically. So we have equipment. So depending on what you equip, what material it's made out of, what type of tool it is, so a shield versus a sword, it's going to impose either beneficial stats or negative stats. So for instance, wearing heavy armor will impose a negative equipment agility, right? So if we put that to equipment and we chuck on, say, a netherite chest plate, we get negative 50 agility, and as you can see, we get a bit slower. Now you can overcome this through training, but I did want to retweak and balance all equipment in the game, and that way it's not just a straight beeline to netherite, right? If you want to be tanky, netherite's going to be the go, but if you want to be fast and agile and, you know, maybe do a little bit more damage, you can probably stick with leather and trade off the defense for it. But, so we have equipment, then we also have a few other ones. We have enchants, right? So there are 7 new enchants in the pack. Well, there's a few more, but I'm still tweaking them. But the 7 enchants directly allow you to build up your agility, conceal, whichever stat you have aligned with the enchantments. And then we have skill, which comes from minigames, which we'll go over shortly. And then we just have general play, which should be just player agility, right? So if we sprint around for a bit, eventually we should get a prompt, and I'll probably just do this until we do get a prompt so I can point it out. There we go. So it says, moving around has increased your agility slightly, and as you can see, our agility went up by 1, right? So it's going to be fairly slow to grow, but, you know, still better than nothing. Oh, there you go. Our agility went back to 0%. So I don't know what gave the false rating or why our strength is still at 4%. But nonetheless, what I have done is there are a bunch of glossary functions. So if you type in function glossary, you will have the ability to easily access certain parts of the pack if you want to test, play around, or just see what they're like. So for instance, you can manually set the season, and I will continue to expand this as I make the pack, right? And that way, again, for testing purposes, or if you yourself want to use specific functions of the pack, you can go nuts, right? So we do have reset, which we'll reset everything, and still give ourselves a strength rating of 4%. So that I will have to read into. I mean, it should be fairly simple to troubleshoot on the fly here, right? If we just type in strength and we have strength, it's currently at 50. I don't know why it's currently at 50. Shouldn't be at 50. Should also be reset, which makes me think it is the equipment strength that has not been reset correctly, which it is. That's fine. This was from testing. It's not an actual issue with the pack, thank God, because I do encounter a bunch of them, but we will get rid of that, right? So we're starting at 0 for everything. So 0, 0, 0. Our base power level is 150, which is basically to do with your luck, right? Equates to that 15%, right? So no stats, no modifiers. If we have a netherite sword in hand, right, our damage is 4, our attack speed is 40%. So if we instead run the function instead of stat reset, stat set max, well, as you could probably see by the FOV, we go a little faster. If we look at our stats now, okay, 121 is obviously not correct. That's math issue. Bear with me. Power level is probably correct. But as you can see, our attack speed is now at 49%, and our damage is equal to 5. So it's not a major increase, but it's more to do with scaling with other aspects of the pack. So there are lots of ways in the pack to increase your attributes in different ways, right? So this 25% speed bonus will then multiply what other speed bonuses you have, be it equipment tinkering, which is another feature of the pack, or any other ways to gain additional attributes, also potion effects or anything like that, right? So it will enhance all the other features of the pack. It's not meant as a simple, you get super strong, you get super fast. It's meant to, again, work with all the other features of the pack. So hopefully that's balanced correctly. Same with all the negative ratios. But if we do that with our speed potion, right, our speed is now at 50%. And this is a 20%. So it's now a 25% increase, right? So definitely useful. Other than that, that is pretty much stats. And I should also note, we should hit the caps, but these are not including equipment stats, right? Because I have obviously not increased equipment strength, right? If we equip a mace, which I think does do it, goes up by another 50, which actually, you know what it is? I haven't set caps. That's why it's gone over 100. Because you can, through any means, be it leveling up yourself, again, just through passively doing stuff. So for instance, running gave us agility, wherever it was right at the start. Mining or harvesting crops will give you skill. Fighting mobs will get you strength. Defeating mobs will get you vigor, I think. I think it's vigor. Basically, right, there's multiple ways to build the 7 stats, but you don't have to focus on one aspect, right? If you really, for whatever reason, you enjoy the mini games that I've come up with, go nuts, go use them to max out your stats. But once you get to a certain level, there's definitely no point going further, so I will have this actively reflect, right, what it should be. But yeah, so again, they're just here as a additional modifier, right, to the other systems in the game. So having high stats will again make potions better, will make equipment better, and will make all these other factors better. They're not just a straight get the stats, then you're done, right? I want everything to mesh well together. All right, we can get rid of the scoreboard and we can go through a few other things. Set display sidebar. So I will also just reset our stats while we're at it. Reset, right? We lost HP. So seasons, this is the other aspect to talk about with this update. So right now we are in the Ashen season as dictated by the little icon above the hotbar. What just spawned was a little dust cloud, right? Because it's meant to be dusty in this season. You can see the particle effects in the sky, especially if I set the time to daytime. So I wanted to give the players a way to still experience all these seasons, but once they've had their fill, or you've established a base or anything like that, stop worrying about them, right? So what we've come up with is wreaths. So wreaths can be made with flowers from any given season, and they will offer protection to the players within a certain radius, right? So you put one down, and every player within its range, which I believe is 16 blocks or a chunk at this current time, it will offer them protection from the season. You go outside that, eventually that protection will wear off, and you'll be exposed to the elements. Once again, like all of these effects, as you probably saw, we had some sort of stats effect. But how do we make them? Well, let us clear our inventory, though I want to make sure. Good, I always forget to take copies of items, right? So if we use another glossary command, which I need to go function, and then glossary, we have environmental effect, and then bloom ash and frost. I will add all the different environmental effects that you can make, or can experience is the word to this glossary of functions as well. But for instance, if we do bloom ash, it will automatically set one of these flowers to grow, which if you're on top of, when it reaches maturity, which in this case of this plant, it will explode and knock you back, but you will get, or you will pick an ash bloom, right? You can then take those ash blooms and you can weave them into a floral wreath, right? So you will need a loom, and it's not through the GUI, right? Drop crafting again is a big thing of this pack. But if we come down here, we have drop 5 ash bloom onto a loom. So we have 64. I might as well just do 5. Right. And then we throw it out. And ta-da, it gets woven into a floral wreath. I always pick words I'm horrible with. But if we then drop this on the ground, it will place it. And what you will notice is the particles dissipate. Because even though the icon is still there, it's still the season, you'll still know what season it is. We currently aren't having any of the effects, right? So I don't know if I want it to clear the particles, right? I guess that's more feedback from anyone playing with the pack, right? Do you want the particles gone? But other than that, it is everything, right? So no environmental effects will spawn in the area, no seasonal effects. Although I should note that the way the pack works, some mobs may still gain effects because it's offering you protection. It's not offering them protection, but the majority of checks are against the player. Now, to get rid of it, all you have to do is use a flint and steel and burn it away, right? It's a plant, will poof, right? And then we should, again, eventually after a random interval of time, I didn't want it just to go away completely because, again, you leaving your base, right? I'd like it to offer some protection for a little bit of time, but eventually the tag that it gives you will eventually clear, and you will get the season back. So, for instance, if we clear weather resists, there we go, particles back, and all the effects are back, happening once again. Now, the other thing to note about the wreaths is depending on which one you make. So, for instance, this protects us against the ash seasons or any of the ash seasons, right? So, if we go to our worldly season cycle and we scroll to ash, right, there are 4 seasonal effects, and this will offer you protection against all 4 of them, but it won't offer you protection against any of the other seasons, right? So end, life, frost, or scorch. Now, again, using a glossary command, I can easily set it to those different seasons. So, for instance, we'll set it to scorch. So the ash will dissipate, and I don't actually know if scorch affects the biome I'm in currently, right? I think that's a bad one. I think life is a definite. Yeah, there we go. Right, so we got the season icon for life, and particles should start up because, well, actually no, because we're still weather resistant, right? But we will not get weather resistant back being near this, right? So it only offers you protection for a little while, and only within the season that it corresponds to. But you can also make a floral wreath seasonal, which is several seasonal flowers woven into a protective wreath, right? Which is pretty much one of each season. Rather than 5 of any given one, it is one of every single flower, meaning you will have to, A, experience the whole seasonal cycle, but also go out and actively collect all the plants. Now, some are easier than others to collect. So, for instance, we saw... How did that break? I must have been creative. We saw the ash bloom, right? That just grows steadily until it suddenly explodes. If you're near it, it will knock back entities, but it will only give it to a player who is in it when it explodes. If it explodes and you're not near it, it won't drop anything. So you will have to, take the brunt of it. If we go with life, for instance, life will steadily grow until it becomes collectible. Same with ender. Right, so both of them start off as little buds, and then as they grow and again reach maturity, then you'll be able to actively collect them. Hopefully I don't block it too much, but when it comes to, say, Scorch or Frost, both of these will exist as they are, and then drop once they run out, right? Because for these 2 flowers, they actually offer status effects while you're near them, right? So you come across this, you get haste and strength. You come across this one, you get absorption and resistance. And I have no idea why it cleared. That's interesting. But once they're done, they will drop on the ground and you can pick them up. But for these 2, once they have particle effects, you have to walk over them, right? And walking over them is how you trigger their effects, right? So regeneration of the life bloom, right? And then once we have all of them, we can come back to the loom and drop all 5. And eventually it will craft into our seasonal wreath, which we can then drop down. and this will offer us protection from all the seasons, right? As long as you have one of these. So you probably want to, make a ton of these. Oh, there we go. We also got sneaking. Sneaking around has increased your conceal, right? Sneaking. So yeah, protection against all seasons in your little base. I thought that was a nice way to handle it. Again, for anyone who wants to experience the seasons, but doesn't want them endlessly. Because I should note there are very different seasons. There are 2 that affect you underground, 2 that affect you above ground. So any of the ones underground will affect you in the base, because what I'm doing is detecting whether or not there is any blocks above you, right? Whether or not you can see the sky, right? All right, with that done, what I think I will do, I did mention minigames. I will do separate videos for each of these, because there's a minigame for each different player stat, and there are 5 tiers to each minigame, right? With progressive difficulty. So, we can craft them, right? I'll go with the crafting, I think, quickly. So the crafting, nice and simple, fletching table, and there are structure kits, which is how you build all the multi-block structures in this pack, right? So you get yourself a stone, saw, and hammer. From there, you can craft different structure kits. In the case of all the training kits, you need 1 gem, right? The gem dictates the tier. So emerald is easy, quartz is the next tier up, next tier, next tier, next tier, right? And then 1 of 7 items, depending on which activity you're going after, which again, all this is listed under the corresponding advancement tabs. So for instance, we have player stats and rebalancing, right? And it'll tell you how to craft all of them. But if we, for instance, take an emerald and a Gastia and throw all 3 down, it should, oh, actually I forgot 1 item. Yeah, that's not even in the chest. I need to go loot, give us, actually there's an easier way to do this. If I give myself a bottle of experience or enchanting, we need to get a, there we are, solidified experience, right? Which is a catalyst crafting item. And we can throw that with these once I pick them up. And there we go. We get ourselves the minigame of Vigor, right? So gem tier, emerald, commences training in Vigor, quiet empty space, a 9x6x9, right? So as long as you have that empty space, you can throw it down and it will start the minigame, which in this case, it looks like this, right? And it says there, in 3 minutes, the minigame will end. There's also some stuff with the chains, right? Eventually you'll slip off them. It's more to do with up there. And then we also have maintain your health between 2 hearts and 7 hearts. Sneak on the different wards to gain status effects, right? So this is the easiest tier, so there are only 2 wards, poison and regeneration. As it says, if you sneak on regeneration, you get regeneration. If you sneak on poison, you get poison, and that's how you manage your HP. And then also, randomly, you'll get other trials. So for instance, in 3 seconds, lodestone at the bottom layer will catch fire, which they did. In 3 seconds, will catch fire. It's random, right? Depending on what you get. And yeah, it's like that. You might slip off the chain. So yeah, it's all about micromanaging your HP. This is probably my 3rd favorite minigame out of a lot of the ones I made. But it seems fun enough. The early levels are definitely going to be more boring than others. But yeah, should still buy time. And I will patiently wait for 3 minutes and cut it out. But it will just disappear by itself, right? You can technically steal the lodestone. This is another thing because a lot of different crafting in this pack sort of starts with lodestone. So if you want some without having to go get netherite, just take your pick and break them. Otherwise, again, they will self-clean up all their structures. You just do need a nice open space to build them, right? I was tempted to make it a one-off build type of thing, but I thought just coming and going, right? You can set up a little mini-game area and then worry about it less, right? Cleaning it up. You can play whichever minigame you want. You don't need a separate area for each. But anyway, the timer will eventually dissipate, and it will clean itself up. Oh, apparently I'm in the right health bracket because we just heard the level up sound. 2 minutes. Oh, there we go. 3, 2, 1, and poof. Disappears, right? Self-cleaning. But I should also mention that well, I'll go into more detail once we actually do each minigame, but the 0 to 5 will scale with whatever your HP are. They are percentage based, right? So there will also be weird rounding issues, right? You might find it's at 5.5 hearts or well, it can't be less than 0, but yeah. So for instance, the bracket here is always 50%, right? So for instance, if you had 20 hearts, it would say 10 to 20 or 0 to 10 or 5 to 15. But we will leave it there. So I hope you enjoyed, and yeah, we will do videos on each of the minigames and go a bit more in depth. And then I will probably do videos on each of the different sections, right? I want to do a playthrough, but there's still lots to do and lots to figure out and tweak. It's just easier if I do it all in one go, right? Because again, I want you to enjoy the pack and experience it, and more importantly, you know what to do without having to read a mountain of text sometimes. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. Yeah.